just general behaviours during a pandemic anyway, and we'll get into sort of comparisons between how people were behaving during the Spanish flu pandemic as compared to now. And it's interesting that there's a lot of similarities there. And it's largely got to do with the fact that, with enough lockdowns, with enough restrictions, et cetera, and this thing just keeping going on and on and on, that, people reach sort of a breaking point. They can't take it anymore kind of thing. That's not to excuse the fact that, for instance, Melbourne went into its sixth lockdown on a couple of days ago, and within 2 hours of the announcement, there was a huge protest in the CBD, and I actually thought that was much more disturbing in that, the fact that it was just seemingly organised that quickly. You could tell that someone's pressing a button on social media to get everyone fired up and out there and to act like idiots on the street, because I don't know what, who knows what they're trying to accomplish or whatever, but like looking back at some of those historical examples from the Spanish flu, it's not actually unexpected, actually, is it? Because it's something that's happened before.
Not at all, and this has always been my point. I don't think at any stage has the messaging really been right on this. Spanish flu went on for 3 years and COVID is going to go on for 3 years. And the fact that for whatever reason they kept on painting these pictures of hope and then taking away that hope really just puts people at odds with the government, because after a while the messaging sort of, tires. People tire of the restrictions, and it's not surprising that people start to not listen anymore. But it's clear, and was probably clear from the start, that with or without a vaccine, 3 years of this is probably likely. We'll wait and see if the vaccine shortens it in Europe and the States, where, I think they've really had a very rough time. But in Australia, where now we're only really experiencing a proper endemic outbreak in New South Wales, that is looking less likely all the time to be under control through lockdown measures, or the lockdown measures they have, then you realise that we've still got probably at least another year, maybe 18 months of this to go.
Absolutely. And I think the thing that was, I think, instructive in looking back at some of that historical information is that, people are, I guess people trying to do the right thing, for lack of a better term, are, horrified at these people running around doing their anti-lockdown, anti-mask protests. And yet you look back at some of the Spanish flu examples and there were people doing that as well back then too. And it's largely around the fact that they, don't want to be told what to do anymore. They're sick of their, lives being impeded in the way all of this has happened. And I think the key thing is this idea that people will listen in the beginning and then it kind of tapers off over time when they get tired of it.
Look, I've been very disappointed that the authorities didn't anticipate that. These sorts of messages and situations have been well researched across a whole variety of situations. So the idea that everybody is quite happy to lock down in the first 6 months and get through it is well known. But, if you think that you're going to maintain that strategy and keep everybody happy for 2 years or 3 years, I think you've got to be reasonable about this. And while those of us who understand the dangers of COVID and the situation we're facing might appreciate the reasons to social distance and wear masks and lock down when we have an outbreak, I think it's a little bit short-sighted to call the people that sort of are probably not doing the right thing by all of us. It's a little bit short-sighted, I think, to immediately condemn them or to go heavy-handed on them, because all you do is you entrench their dissidency. And it's a fine line, but I think, we have to be a little bit more tolerant, because these people are under stress. And I think this is what we're seeing, how it plays out, and to overlook the fact that, you know, that they might be under stress as opposed to just considering them purely as troublemakers.
Yeah.
It's a fine line. I mean, I'm sure there's a troublemaking element in there. There always is. But,
well, that was,
you know, by and large...
I mean, that's one point before we move on. Just that probably is worth pointing out is just the advent of social media technologies that weren't available during the Spanish flu, and I think that element of the troublemaker that you refer to prey on, you know, others. That again, it's a bit like my little letter here from before. That, you know, they target the people with anxieties, etc., and pull them in and, you know, stir them up and make them angry, and that like the protests that happened here. The other day was an example of that, because it was clear that it was well organised by a bunch of troublemakers on social media to get everyone fired up and out there. And I think that is an element that might not be new, because again, if you look at the Spanish flu examples, they were troublemakers there in the sense that, you know, there were people that were wanting to start it up, but the ability to organise now is a lot more easier for these people, and it's a lot easier for them to get their message out and to convince people to act the same.
Exactly, and as you mentioned, it's just like your letter. They're, you know, appealing to people who are stressed, who are under pressure, and don't know what to do. And suddenly, like, this message appears that we should resist this or we should fight this, and it seems like a solution to what I'm feeling, and so I join. And this is the basic mechanics of how these things work. So, you know, as a society, I think we have to be tolerant enough to understand that some people are going to behave like this. Obviously, as a society, we might not condone it, but I think somewhere deep down we kind of have to accept it.